Hey, good evening and welcome to Fired Up. I'm your host for the show, Bob Iwrwin. We are coming to you live from the gun store here in Las Vegas. This show is about guns, politics, and issues of self-defense. We are coming to you on KSHP Radio 1400 AM and simultaneously on YouTube at Fired Up with Bob Iwrwin. We're here every Tuesday from 5 to 6 p.m. Tonight's guests are attorney Andrea Lee Loom and firearms instructor Lenny Davis. Andy, could we have a bit of your background for the purposes of our listeners who don't know who you are?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Bob. I am an attorney here in Las Vegas. I practice mostly in criminal defense, well, pretty much completely in criminal defense. I have been practicing for almost 16 years now, Colorado, and then here in Nevada. And I do a lot of mostly defensive violent crimes and a lot of gun crimes as well.
And lots of experience with the special public defender here?
Yes, for 9 years I did exclusively homicide defense. So capital murder and regular non-capital murder.
Non-capital murder?
Yes.
Serious crime defense. Hopefully you do not meet Andy in a professional capacity. But if you need one. And Lenny Davis, welcome back, Lenny.
Thank you, sir.
Your background briefly?
Former special agent with Department of Homeland Security and U.S. Customs. Up until just this last year, I was from 2008 till just this last year, I've been an instructor for the Global Anti-Terrorism Assistance Program in the State Department. And now I am the Director of Investigations and Training Facilities for Textratics International here in Las Vegas.
Which is a company that trains
We train everybody from civilians to the military, special operations. And if I could, just one quick shout out to my brothers in Tunisia. We lost one yesterday. A kid I personally helped train in 2014. And he will be missed.
Because of the time differential, a few seconds between the radio broadcast and the YouTube broadcast, we can't take on-air questions as we used to, but you may send us by email if you want a question or comment to bob@firedupmail.com. If it's for Lenny or Andy, I will forward them to them for answers. And as I said, this show is about guns, politics related to and self-defense issues. There are hundreds of defensive use of firearms every week in the United States. The media doesn't cover them very much. So we like to start out with 4 or 5 cases of firearms being used in defensive mode. So listeners will have an idea of what they could do or could not do. If a similar situation happens to you, we always leave the names out of those because our interest is in what the individual did, how he reacted, and we may critique it, even if it's a good shooting. You could have made it a little bit better by doing this or whatever, but they're for your education, not to second guess the individual who was actually there in the middle of the fight. But this is always for our listeners' education. Some are good shooting, some are questionable, but all are food for thought for gun owners. So you can look at the situation. We can get comments from the attorney and firearms trainer as to what happened, what could have happened better. The Detroit News reported on the 1st in Detroit, Michigan, a homeowner shot 2 suspects Tuesday afternoon as they allegedly attempted to break into a home on the city's west side. Just after midday at 1 p.m. in the 5400 block of West Outer Drive, they crashed into a home. The resident fired 2 shots, striking both male subjects. A Detroit policeman said. He said one of the wounded suspects stayed at the scene while the other fled on foot. The suspect who stayed at the scene is now being detained at the hospital. His condition was not listed by the police department. They're continuing to look for the second suspect. Interesting story because it said it does not appear the homeowner was injured in the incident. The spokesman for the Detroit police said he could not or would not confirm that the homeowner is a retired police officer. Sometimes bad guys run into somebody who is practiced and prepared, And apparently this older gentleman who answered the crash on his front door had some serious background in training. Surprise, the guy living here is a retired policeman and you got shot. I use stories like this to encourage people to practice with their gun, practice what they're going to do, and react accordingly. Obviously, if the bad guy's going to break into a home and he knows it's an armed retired police officer, he's going to probably wish he went somewhere else. In this case, means having a plan and carrying your firearm around so it's available. Policemen retired do that.
Yes, we do.
They tend to have a gun with them at all the time, and so he was prepared when these people crashed through the door. Hopefully, if that happens to you, you'll be like this guy, who we don't know for sure if he was actually a retired policeman or not. I think they would know that right off the bat.
Well, I think, yeah, Detroit PD is probably not putting that out, but just.
Well, the problem is retribution. This is probably a couple of gangbangers, and now the guy is maybe a target for retaliation because he shot a bad guy who died. Questions or comments, again, can be directed to bob@firedupmail.com. The gun store offers here 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, concealed carry classes, which hopefully will get you prepared for this event. Type of event may happen to you. We're getting a lot of those around town. If you have, I keep saying if you read the paper, nobody reads the paper. But if you look on the internet,
You make me feel old. I still read the paper every morning.
You're the other guy.
Yeah.
There's
2 of us. Come on.
And this is from called TC Palm Reports in St. Lucie County, Florida, also on the first. A 20-year-old, 1-year-old resident and 2 friends, both age 20, were outside a trailer, one of their trailers in the Cypress Bay Mobile Home Park at 1:45 in the morning when they were approached by 2 robbers, actually. One of the suspects, armed with a gun, pistol whipped the resident, who he lost some front teeth and possibly has a broken nose. He had the resident on the ground, pointing his gun at the victim, and while he tried to frisk the guy. He did frisk him. He took his wallet and his cell phone, but unfortunately he didn't find the legally carried pistol his victim had on him. When the armed suspect looked away, the victim pulled out a 9mm pistol, fired 8 times, striking the armed suspect, age 27, 4 times. Another bullet struck the wound and wounded the second suspect. The third suspect ran. Police don't know at this point whether he was hit or not. At this report, the wounded suspect was in Longwood Regional Medical Center. The park manager said there are 27 homes in the community. It's a trailer park. And he said he was asleep in his home when he heard 6 to 7 shots. He said the mobile home park has been a quiet community. Most people are decent. He said the sheriff, Ken Mascara, said the victim acted in self-defense. It's a fairly safe mobile home park, he said. We can always say this was a random act. Clearly, if this guy is sitting in front of his house, talking to his friends, and this robber just sprang on him and pistol whipped him, he could have lost way more than his teeth and the injuries and his wallet and his phone. This is another example of why you should carry your firearm if you have a concealed carry permit. If this guy had not been carrying his gun, he clearly could have lost a lot more. He obviously had thought this through. He waited until the guy that was beating on him was distracted, so he had a split second to pull his gun. Always carry your firearm. Obviously, there's an issue here of pulling your gun on a guy who's already pointing his gun at you, and tough thing to do, but obviously this guy is going to do him harm, had done him harm. He's probably going to not recover completely. That's for the rest of his life.
Yeah. Well,
So-
and this was a perfect example of if you can do something to distract him. He was distracted while he was trying to rob the other two guys, and he was a terrible pat down search. He would have failed the academy because he missed a 9mm automatic. This also goes back to some of the things that I teach sometimes, and I try to tell guys, look, when you got a CCW, it means concealed carry. Okay, conceal the damn thing.
Yeah.
I see, and don't get me wrong, folks. Don't start writing and say Lenny's against open carry. I'm not. I have done it occasionally, not very often, but I have done it occasionally. I don't like to do that because you have that element of surprise, and just in this situation was a perfect example of that. He missed that pistol. If somebody sees a gun, the first thing I'm going to do is, if I'm going to rob these three guys, of course, at 1:45 in the morning, is I'm going to shoot that guy if I'm armed, and I'm going to get I'm going to get a couple of things. One, I'm going to get everything he owns, including his pistol. If he doesn't know I've got a gun, he pistol whips this guy. He's lucky he didn't just shoot him in the face and take his gun.
Yeah,
So
this was really close, and I'm obviously the sheriff said, again, this is a safe, fairly safe mobile home park, et cetera, et cetera. Where is safe anymore? We've had all sorts of this type of case here in Las Vegas where the individuals, they go to the nice houses. They go gangsters don't rob poor people. They don't have any money.
Yeah.
One hardly knows what these guys were expecting to find, because you can't really get in their head, because this is such an irrational act. You just walk up and start pistol whipping somebody.
Well, how many times over the years have we seen people that'll do just incredibly vicious, violent attacks to other people for next to nothing? A 6-pack of beer or $10, and they'll kill somebody.
I think I have one near that home. The target was simply to steal a cell phone, and ends up in a shooting. We do have a ladies only shooting and personal safety class twice a month, second and fourth Friday, taught by Maggie Mordaunt, a frequent guest here. The next class is Thursday, March 8th. You can sign up for that at thegunstorelasvegas.com. And we go on to this is KPRC TV2 in Houston, Texas, on the 1st again. Great day for shooting. Police say a man tried to break into a townhouse in the 8500 block of Maple Crest Drive. The homeowner, who is new to the neighborhood, heard someone break the glass next to his front door. He went downstairs with his gun, saw the intruder, and opened fire and killed that criminal. Neighbors say the break-ins and crime scenes are not too common here in this Southwest Houston neighborhood. This is not the end of it. It's just getting closer and closer to our front door, one neighbor told reporters. He meant that literally, telling Channel 2 his next-door neighbor was burglarized just hours before this incident. The police have not connected the two cases as of yet. It may have taken the neighbors a minute to realize what had just happened around 1:30 Tuesday morning, 1:30 in the morning again. When they found one of the neighbors shot and killed an intruder, it wasn't a surprise anymore. We're going to our homeowners association next meeting, and we're going to get our security out here again, one said. The neighbors are afraid to let their kids play in the yard alone. It's time we do something about it. It's a shame when somebody loses their life over a handful of dollars, said another neighbor. The police, of course, have forwarded the case to the Harrison County grand jury. In this day and age where citizens get murdered over their cell phone, you got to realize that home invaders generally don't know there's something valuable there. They pick the houses because they look easy. Most are random targets. They find a door. Looks like they can kick it in. In this case, there was glass next to the door. The guy could kick the glass through and open it. There may not be a reason for the choice at all, other than the fact that the house is there. It's if the front door looks tough, they go around the back door and kick that one in. So metal gates on your door, lights, cameras, alarms, all reduce your threat where the individual will look at that house and go to the next one because it's easier.
Yeah, you're hardening the target.
But so you do what you can to harden the target. You one up your neighbor so yours looks harder to break into than the one next door, and they break into the one next door. And then when they do, don't go tell your neighbor, ha ha, I made him do that, because it's just anyway.
Kind of like the big sign that you've seen on the joke on Facebook says, rob this guy's house because he doesn't believe in on private ownership of guns. You know, my neighbor doesn't believe that. I'm armed, on the other hand, so where are you going to go?
My neighbor has no gun. Yeah, please go next door and convince me I should have bought one, but it's too late now. You know, we don't want to encourage you that you have to have a gun in your house, but it's like having a fire extinguisher. You know, it's not because you want to shoot anybody. It's just sometimes you have no choice, and somebody comes crashing through your door for nothing. It's just,
well, and like I've said before many times on this show, it's the reality of it is response time. Yes, you can dial 911. Look at the San Bernardino shooting. Here was, these guys were actually faster because they were training less than a mile away. They responded in less than 4 minutes. But these guys had done, well, these two terrorists walked in and killed these people in less than 30 seconds. You are your own first responder, and you have to kind of wrap your mind around that. Nobody can save you but you. The police are really good at showing up and doing a cleanup, but they're not going to be able to get there and protect you. Very seldom will they be in front of your house when a guy kicks your door in. So,
yeah, even if they're just up the street.
Yeah.
By the time they get the call, et cetera, you got 2 or 3 minutes on your own. I think we're looking at a national average here of 7 minutes on response time now, according to stats. You can't imagine how long 7 minutes is when somebody's coming through your front door. Another good shooting here. This is WPVI TV6 in Philadelphia. Police say just after 8:30 p.m., a couple was walking home from work. This altercation took place in the 700 block of South 2nd Street in Queen Village, if you know where that is. It's part of the greater Philadelphia area. A couple told police 2 men walked past them. One said to the 65-year-old husband as they walked past, "What are you looking at?" Then he suddenly turned and punched the 65-year-old guy. The attacker threw him to the ground and started beating on him. The suspects then turned their attention to the man's wife, and she's in her 50s, punching her and knocking her down as well. That's when the 65-year-old resident, again, the guy is distracted with beating up his wife, drew a .45 caliber pistol and began shooting. The unidentified male victim shot both men, one in the stomach, the other in the shoulder. He had his valid concealed carry permit. According to the 2 men, the 2 who were shot made their way across the Bainbridge Street. The 20-year-old criminal, suffering from a gunshot wound to the stomach, sat down outside a bar. The other one, a 21-year-old, was holding his neck and shoulder where he was shot. Police arrived, took the 2 suspects to the hospital. The couple's attorney said the couple had tried to get away, but the 2 men kept coming after them. The attorney said the husband suffered various wounds to his eyes and face. He explained his clients had lived in the neighborhood for 40 years. Police are calling the shooting self-defense. However, the district attorney will decide if anyone should be charged, including the 2 young men who are both hospitalized in stable condition. This is a wonderfully perfect shooting for a number of reasons. Always carry your firearm, duh. And they made no comment to the police or to the media. They let their attorney do the talking. You can dig a tremendous hole with your mouth. I can think of dozens of cases I've worked on, and I know, Andre, you've worked on lots of them, where the shooter who's did a perfectly fine thing says something that makes the police think he did something wrong. Don't talk. depending on whether I have a police officer guest who's thinking as a police officer or a defense attorney, I see no problem with saying, here's my ID, here's my gun, I'm Fred, I live in this house. That's it. Don't, can you convince the officer on the scene that you're not guilty, so he just lets you go?
No.
No.
I don't think I could even convince him. I mean, it's a bad idea. You just shot somebody. You just watched your wife get attacked and, defending your life. And it's absolutely the worst move you could make is try to explain what happened.
I know I've repeated this story on the show, but I had a guy who was working his case on the defense once, and he shot an intruder in his house that in the dark coming down the hall after a warning, and the guy didn't react properly without getting involved in all the shooting. But when the detectives arrived, the guy who did the shooting said to one of the officers, he looked a lot like a guy who used to date my daughter.
Oh, jeez.
Well, that lit up the police. What he meant was the silhouette he saw was about the same height and weight and looked like a male in the dark. He was trying to describe his physical size. But of course, the police look at that and go, okay, and did your daughter break up with this guy under bad circumstances? And around they go because you thought you were shooting a guy who used to date your daughter.
Well, in this case, he's got serious injuries to his face and eyes. He's just been in a shooting. He's been in combat with a couple of individuals. And you're not thinking straight. Believe me, I've been in 2 shootings. And no matter how well you're trained and everything else, you are going to get really pumped up. You're going to have a lot going on, and you're not going to be the greatest witness at that time. That's why most police departments will give an officer up to 48 hours before they really sit down with him and say, hey, look, we need to talk to you about this. Are you ready to give me a statement?
After they collect their thoughts and try and get it in their head, because you're not going to remember everything in the right sequence,
right?
And you're going to say, this happened, then that happened, and it's the other way around. And when the homicide guys get through with the scene, they discover that you're lying. You're not lying.
Right.
You're brain dead when this happens, and your brain will put it back together in a different circumstance. In some of the training I did on this very issue, we discovered that all of the other English-speaking countries that I'm aware of, if there are 2 or 3 officers involved in a shooting, they let them, the Canadians and the Brits, let them sit in a room and talk about what happened, presuming they're not going to lie. They're trying to get their story straight. I don't remember that. It's not to get their story straight, but it's to help the ones who blanked out on certain things. Oh, that's right. That guy came through that door. I was thinking he came through that door when it just happened because their brain is all rattled.
Yep.
In America, we assume the officer did something wrong and they're all going to fix up this story.
I don't know if I like that
good.
approach that much, though. I think that there's, potentially, I'm just saying, I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, if your memory is not that good and somebody's telling you what they recall, it's a lot of times people can have a false memory and, suddenly that becomes what you saw, even though that's not necessarily what you saw.
We have 3 guys with false memories.
Well, the better approach is just I would think, is keep everybody apart. Like you're saying, give them a couple of days to calm down, maybe talk to their lawyer, maybe even look at some of the evidence, forensic evidence that was collected to see if that comports with what they remember. But
and you're going to get different points of view from different people.
Yeah, they see things at different
They're going to
angles.
see different angles. They're going to see different distances, light, everything's going to come involved in that.
yeah.
So I mean, that at that point, I'm kind of with you, though. I don't know how well. I mean, I was never told I could go and sit with 2 or 3 other guys and talk about it, but it's an interesting approach. But I'm just
It
saying.
sounds dangerous to me.
Yeah,
I'm
well, you know, and again, I
not
think
gonna say they're lying. I'm just
No,
saying somebody might say, "Oh, geez, maybe that's what I should have seen," or that guy
unfortunately,
got it right and I'm wrong.
right.
It makes the presumption that we don't, that the officers are going to tell the truth.
Right, and in this day and age, it's the mere you know appearance of impropriety. Oh well, you guys sat in a room and concocted this story together, and I could see where people are going to.
And I'm not going to say that's impossible.
Oh,
But I'm going to say that most officers try to do it right and try to tell the truth.
Well, I'm not suggesting that there would be intentionally lying or fabricating evidence. It's just I think that blank spaces could be filled with information by somebody else, and then all of a sudden they think, well, that's in fact what happened, but maybe that's not their own recollection.
And maybe it's not their own recollection. Or you have
not in
three
a
guys
sinister
independently
way.
doing the same thing. And nobody's story matches.
Well, remember how many times have we seen when we've reviewed shootings with police officers? How many rounds you shoot? Oh, 3, 4.
Yeah,
And I mean,
and
guys are
12.
really well trained, and I mean, they go, "Oh, we shot 3 or 4." Well, then why are there 2 empty magazines on the ground? Okay, because your world collapses.
You're
into
brain dead.
this.
Yeah.
You're brain dead. So
You're reacting, so your memory doesn't work for that time span. But it will come back to you after a while. And all we're saying is the videotape sometimes, oh yeah, you know, obviously that's what happened because I was there. And we use the other officer like a piece of videotape. That's the theory. Works in London, so never going to work here because we don't trust anybody.
Because you have defense
We
attorneys.
presume everybody's lying here. This is kind of a sad, stupid story. I'm sure most of you saw this on the news if you follow rock and roll, because that's where it came up. There was a CNN report of numerous reports that the wife of a rock star, he'd been with the Eagles at one point, died this week on the 7th. A rifle accidentally discharged while being moved, according to the LAPD. North Las Vegas officers responded to a shooting at 7 p.m. They found a victim with a single gunshot wound. She was killed when she moved a rifle stored in a case in a closet. As she lifted the rifle in the case, another item apparently in the case shifted and hit the trigger on the rifle, causing it to fire, and it hit her in the head and fatally injured her. She was pronounced dead by the LA Fire Department personnel. She was in her early 60s. The family's cooperating with the investigators. This is a really tragic story. How do you explain to people? The article, and I couldn't find it, whether it's a soft case or a hard case. I'm presuming a soft case, but it could have happened with a hard case too. Apparently, they are storing a loaded rifle, chambered, safety off, in a gun case with other loose items. And this was looked at by some very good investigators from the Los Angeles Police Department Homicide Unit. So I'm sure what they're saying is correct. And when she moved the case to go from one place to the other, something in the case hit the trigger, fired the gun, and she had her face in front of the end of the case, and it hit her in the head and killed her. When I see accidents like this, it is so hard to come and criticize people this happened to. Obviously realize that was a really stupid thing to do. If you in your home have a gun, pistol, this is a rifle apparently, but in a gun case with something else loose, that if you shake the case, that you're not going to use this gun for self-defense. If it's in the case locked in the closet anyway, without going to get it. If you go to get it, you have time to chamber it, take the safety off, et cetera, et cetera. Leaving a loaded gun where it just, as a firearms instructor for all these years, I just can't express how stupid this is. And I realize they know that now, and I'm not trying to criticize them. I'm trying to use that as an example for others that are out there. You have a loaded gun somewhere that is in this kind of condition, or might be because you forgot to unchamber it or forgot whatever.
Well, unloaded guns have killed a lot of people. Okay, absolutely. When, just like you said, Bob, if this thing is stored, you shouldn't have it's not your self-defense weapon. It's not your ready to go weapon. It's in a case, it's in a closet. If you've got a round in it, and you're just silly.
I mean, people that leave guns. Obviously I have guns that I have loaded in my home, but I don't leave them. If they have a safety, I don't leave them chambered with a safety off, where as soon as I touch it, if I'm in a moment of panic and I grasp it in a hurry, that I'm going to shoot it without intending to shoot it. Go look at the gun you have in your house when this program's over. Don't interrupt the program to go look now. But
stay where you are.
Carefully look at it and see that you have not done that inadvertently. All of us have found guns loaded that we thought we had unloaded, and maybe that's the case here. The individual thought he had unloaded the gun, whoever put it there, and I don't know if it was her husband or somebody else. We didn't establish who owned the gun and so forth and so on here. There's a lot of details that are missing, other than it clearly was an accident.
And if you're not sure on how a gun works, ask somebody that knows. Get some decent training. A lot of people make the mistake. They take, especially with semi-auto pistols. How many times have we seen it on a range when somebody pulls a magazine out of their pistol and they just swear and be damned that that thing's unloaded, and they're still around in the chamber, and they press that trigger.
Like I said, who among us has not found a gun loaded that they thought they'd unloaded? You unload your gun every time you come back from the range, and one time you don't, because you're distracted and you just remember unloading it, but you actually didn't. So go check it. It's this kind of thing just can't happen, and as everybody knows, usually when this happens, it's a child that picks it up who has no idea. Questions or comments to bob@firedupmail.com. Please friend us on Facebook if you would. That was on the other side of that one, and that one's the call-in number. Mention we have a wedding chapel here at the gun store. We have memorable shotgun weddings and vow renewals, simple ceremony to something really elaborate. Go to thegunstorlasvegas.com, click on special events, and you'll get a plethora of things we can do here to get you hitched or do vow renewals for you. They're really slick. Why don't we do this? I don't know if I mentioned on the last show, but the show before that, we had a couple here that were all wearing matching camouflage outfits, a camouflage wedding dress.
Wow.
It's like, couldn't hardly see them.
Where'd they go?
Now, here we go with my pet peeve. Again, a warning shot. And, this is KBOI TV reports in Nampa, Idaho on the 3rd. Authorities looking for 2 people after responding to a report of shots fired in a home. Actually, it was a shot, I believe. Police say homeowners came into their vacant house to do some maintenance work Wednesday night when they found a couple living inside the home. Tra-la, squatters. When the squatters became aggressive, one of the homeowners fired a warning shot into the floor. The intruders then fled the scene. When we came into the house, the police sergeant said from the Nampa police, when we came to the home, we found sleeping bags and signs of people getting in and out of the cold for the night. Officers are trying to identify the couple who were found in the home. They fled the home, and here we are again with a warning shot. Now, this report does not give a lot of information as to what, because no one was hurt, so there's not a lot of detail here, that what they meant by the couple becoming aggressive. We'll presume the guy at some point had the gun visible and said, "Get out of my house," or whatever, and wasn't getting his point across he fired a round into the floor. I'm going to assume, for purposes of this discussion that Lenny and I are about to have, that there were verbal warnings that were ignored, or brandishing the gun, which was ignored. The round was aimed where the shooter was absolutely sure would cause no harm. I don't see the solution as then actually shooting a squatter couple who are apparently unarmed and wanted some kind of physical combat or something. I don't know. Not a lot of details here. Every law enforcement agency in the entire world and every firearms instructor in the entire world except me teaches never fire a warning shot. And had something come of this, he fires the warning shot and the couple attacks him and there's some physical violence. Would not the warning shot defense lawyer be a point of argument to show a warning for self-defense rather than just shooting them? Careful, Lenny will yell at you. I'm setting you up to get an opinion.
I'll tell you, I have argued that on a couple of occasions, in particular in homicide cases where there was a warning shot and ultimately there was a shooting and a killing. And I think that the warning shot, as a defense attorney, is an argument that they were trying to either diffuse the situation, they didn't want to hurt the person, so they made it an overt gesture. Hey, I have a gun. I'm not afraid to show it.
Take that,
I'm not afraid to shoot it. And so they took steps to prevent a killing. The perpetrator, and two cases I defended came to mind, continued their attack and they were killed. Now, to what extent, because I've negotiated the two cases I'm thinking about, to what extent that mattered to the prosecutors or to the police, I don't know.
Because neither one actually went to a jury.
Neither one went to a jury, no. But I think it was persuasive because I did actually manage to get really good resolution on both the cases that I can think
I would
of.
think it would at least give the prosecutor pause to think, wow, if the jury looks at that,
Right.
it goes to the intent.
I attempted to stop the attack. They continued, despite seeing a gun. That makes, in my opinion, as a defense attorney, an attacker even more dangerous. If they see you with a gun and hear you shoot it, and they keep coming at you, then they are not afraid of anything.
Yeah, I'm prefacing this, but
I don't know whose side I'm supposed to be taking. That's my
it's
opinion.
not on the second floor of the house firing around in the
Right.
ceiling of the people below and so on and so on. I'm making the presumption that the guy absolutely knew where the shot was going and that was endangered by it. Firing a warning shot out over the city of Las Vegas is not the idea. And police departments are very conscious of the fact that the warning shot could hit somebody in an urban environment. They hit people that you have no idea are blocks away. Worked cases where a round came through the ceiling of a house that was 3/4 of a mile or half a mile away. It was a shooting at Western High School, and this bullet came crashing through the guy's window in the middle of the night and hit in the bed right next to the guy's head.
Yeah.
And he was so far away, they never heard the shot or anything. Just random bullet, but it was part of a gunfight that had taken place.
And I think it's definitely dangerous, but in some situations, I think, in particular domestic type situations, the shooter who's defending themselves doesn't necessarily want to kill the person because it's somebody that they love or care about, and that person is, so I've seen that happen too. So again, I don't know. You think it's bad?
Well, I'm kind of painted into a corner by Mr.
Yes.
Iwrwin, but in a way, yes, I understand. I see your point where you say, hey, look, I was trying to keep from killing the guy. I put a round in the jail. Again, we don't know what this guy did. If this guy was so aggressive, he's coming at me, my warning shot's going to go in the middle of his chest. If I'm feeling in fear of my life, I have to, we have to presume a lot here. There's a lot of presumptions.
There's
Because if
very
you-
little information.
Yeah,
right?
if you fired around into most of the houses here in Las Vegas, if you're on, especially on the first floor, you're going to fire into a concrete slab. You have no idea where that bullet's going to go. It's going to go through the flooring. It's going to hit maybe furniture. You have no idea. Bullets do
They
crazy
go
things.
places you never expect.
You never expect them to. So I'm leery about that. Heaven forbid you fire a warning shot and it goes into another room where you didn't know these squatters had a couple of kids and you kill a kid over there. Not going to be murder, going to be involuntary manslaughter, but you're still going to go to prison. I just have a hard time, unless you're on, being an ex-customs agent. Now we trained our Marine folks that you could fire warning shots. They were trying to develop a policy before I left the air program that we could fire in rural open areas where we had smuggling airplanes coming across the border, that we could actually fire some tracers out in front of the aircraft to let them know, hey, it's time to land. So I'm not 100% against it, but in an urban environment like this, and again, I'd have to know some more before I could really say, yeah, I think it was a good idea or a bad idea.
Well, I'm sure we all could, when we look at all the details, go,
Yeah.
this was a really stupid idea or it was a valid idea.
Right.
But I hate the rule that says never, never, never fire a warning shot. And in police departments where we've got that rule, where if you fire a warning shot, you're toast. The police always write in their reports, I fired at the guy and missed.
But it's also different when you're a police officer, because
Yeah,
people are presumed to believe that things happen the way that you said they did. Now, if you're just a single Hispanic woman who's getting attacked by her boyfriend, you might not have the same feeling that, oh, the police are going to believe me when I tell them he was attacking me. But
She's usually going to win. They're
tough.
a couple of
ladies.
things on some other gun issues while we're here. A website called Think Progress. I have no idea why that came to me, but it did. Said this week on the 6th, gun owners in West Virginia will no longer need a permit to have a concealed weapon, putting it among the most far-reaching states for gun rights. The House voted on a measure Friday and officially overrode a gubernatorial veto on Saturday. The law, which does away with permits and the training program for people over 21 who want to carry a concealed weapon, was supported by the NRA and so forth, and opposed by law enforcement throughout the state. Now, this was written by a website called Think Progress, so that's why all cops were against it in their view. West Virginia law enforcement officers dedicated their lives to keeping us safe and helping us in times of need. It's disheartening that members of the legislature have chosen not to stand with these brave men and women in putting their safety and the safety of all West Virginians at risk, said Democratic Governor Earl Ray Tomblin after they overrode his veto. Allowing just anyone to carry a concealed weapon means that law enforcement officers have no way of knowing whether someone might be armed. It also means there's no way to know if they had training or gun expertise or so forth and so on. And we all advocate if you're going to carry a gun, you should have training. The question is, can the government require that? Is the issue. Anyway, they're going to override it. They did in West Virginia. And so after the lawsuits are finished,
Yeah.
which there will be, so don't carry in West Virginia at the moment, because there will be immediate lawsuits that are already started against this veto override. And when the lawsuits are done, we'll see who won.
Well, and this kind of mirrors an Alaska law, where in Alaska you can carry a gun without a concealed weapons permit. They did put it to make it a felony, immediate felony, if you don't inform the police officer when you have a contact. He pulls you over. Hi, can I see your driver's
And
license?
that may be one of the things that's
And hopefully they did, because they put that in there. They should. And if you don't say, hey, I've got a gun and I'm carrying a gun, officer, okay. If you don't do that and something happens and they pat you down and they find the gun, that's a felony.
And
As well
here
it
in
should be.
Nevada, that's one of the issues we have, because you're not required in Nevada to tell the officers you have a gun in your car, you have a gun on you. It's not in the law, you have to, but it's really smart if you do that. And while you say the magic word gun, have your hands in view. You know, that understand how this looks. The officer is coming up. He has no idea who you are. And he suddenly sees a gun. He's going to probably go for his gun or tell you to freeze or whatever they are trained to do. Always, when you're approached by the officer, leave your hands in view and say, before I get my license and whatnot, you need to know I have a pistol in a glove box. I have a howitzer in my shoulder holster or whatever it happens to be. So the guy's aware of it. They won't jump out of their skin. But they're used to that happening. Lots of people have guns in their cars.
Let me tell you, folks, a couple of years ago, I was riding my motorcycle probably a little faster than the posted speed limit. I know you're
I
shocked,
find that hard.
but I was pulled over by a Metro police officer. Got off the motorcycle, took my helmet off, kept my hands away from my body, and the first words out of my mouth were, "Just for your safety and mine, officer, let you know I have a CCW and I am armed." And he goes, "Okay, thank you. Now can I see your driver's license registration?" Never asked to see my CCW. He looked at my driver's license. He looked at my registration and my insurance. He went back, ran me, found out that I was not wanted in 17 states.
Only 16.
Oh, easy now. And so he came back and he said, "Do me a favor, slow down." He appreciated the fact that I was honest with him and said, "Hey, I got a gun."
Yeah, do that. It's only
It's not going to cause them. And I'm going to tell you, a lot of people tell me, well, they're going to throw me on the ground. They're going to hook me up. They're going to take my gun. If they do, let them do that. When they release you, you toddle your little buns down to the department's internal affairs division and you file a complaint, because that is not cricket.
That's what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
BATF reported this week that 15,000 guns were lost or stolen in the United States during calendar year 2015. Just came out with the numbers. Federal law requires the ATF to compile a status of firearms either lost or stolen from federal firearms licensed dealers. This doesn't include private thefts, just from dealers. 14,800 were determined to be lost or stolen, which is down 4,400 from 2014. Burglaries made up 4,700 of the missing. Guns, larcenies, 1,200. Robberies, 322. And 8,637 guns were lost. I want to point out that the National Firearms Act stolen or lost was 139, 30 machine guns, 3 destructive devices, and 1 any other weapon, 105 silencers. Arkansas reported the most missing firearms, 2,951. Texas reported just over 1,000, and Georgia 683. Guns stolen in transit are a huge problem. That's why we don't let common carriers use boxes that give indications of that there's a gun in the box. We got a package a couple of weeks ago from a silencer from somebody, and the return address was the silencer shop. Now, I'm amazed that made it all the way here, but it did. Not that most people would run off with that, but you know.
What I wonder, out of the 139 stolen NFA guns, how many were issued to law enforcement agencies?
A lot of them. This was quite detailed. A lot of them were stolen out of police cars and out of FBI cars and so forth and so on. You know, it just happens. Anyway, comments, questions to bob@firedupmail.com. Little politics. We're going to okay here. The National Shooting Sports Foundation, in talking about the Democratic debate last Sunday, March 6th, Hillary Clinton again falsely charged the firearms industry as immune from liability due to the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Firearms Act, and that law should be repealed. Bernie Sanders, to his credit, even though he's a socialist guy, is not in favor of repealing that act. What that Protection of Lawful Commerce Act says is if a firearm that is entered in commerce is criminally misused, the dealer, manufacturer, distributor cannot be sued if the sale was otherwise legal. we can't predict who's going to commit a criminal act with a gun a year later, 5 years later, whatever. Hillary is trying to basically cancel that act, which would mean, quite literally, folks, the end of the gun industry in the United States. Nobody's going to make a firearm, sell a firearm, distribute a firearm if they are liable from cradle to grave for the criminal misuse of that gun. Illegal use can't be helped. It is not predictable. And, you know, certainly if we're liable as a dealer, if a guy says, I want to get a gun because I want to shoot my neighbor, I've had that happen in this store. We don't sell them that gun. In fact, we call the cops. But if it's a perfectly legal sale, they pass background, everything else that goes on, and then a year later they use that gun to murder somebody or accidentally shoot somebody or whatever, the dealer, distributor, manufacturer being held liable means we can't get insurance. There ain't no gun sales.
Well, the San Bernardino shooting is a perfect example of that. It was a straw man purchase by a friend of one of the shooters, and the dealer that sold him the guns did it legally in the People's Republic of California, folks. The hardest place in the country to buy a gun, especially a assault rifle. The guy passed the background check. He did everything legally. The dealer sold him the weapon. They were later illegally modified in California, and they were used in a horrendous terrorist attack. You can't hold the dealer. You couldn't hold the manufacturer. You can't hold the accessory manufacturers. Anybody responsible for that? That's crazy.
We are, all that chain is liable for defective products. They're liable for making sales to somebody who's drunk, so on and so on. But you can't predict it, and that would be the last gun you ever see. You can't get your guns repaired because whoever repairs it is not going to be responsible for it, etc.
Nobody's going to build him. You're going to make ammunition, anything.
With Michael Bloomberg announcing this week he's not going to run for president, that only leaves Hillary as the super duper anti-gun candidate. A vote for Hillary, folks, is a vote that you don't have any guns, and that's that. It's not a good thing. Upcoming, we've got the Iwrwin banquet, the Wildlife Habitat Improvement of Nevada at the Gold Coast. You can get tickets by calling 702-769-1613. They support all sorts of things. Rocky Mountain Gun Show's got one coming April 2 and 3 at the Reno Convention Center. They're still looking for a venue in Las Vegas. Now, the Firearms Coalition is having their annual banquet April 23rd at the Gold Coast. Also, just like the Iwrwin banquet, you can find them at www.nvfac.org and get tickets. Next Tuesday, we'll be back. Our guest attorney will be Bill Gamage, one of my favorite attorneys because he used to be a firearms instructor, and we taught academies together years and years ago.
And he used to be a law enforcement officer.
And he used to be a law enforcement officer. Now he's just a damn fine attorney. He told me that himself.
Now he's one of those people. Oh, sorry, Andy.
Thanks for listening on KSHP 1400 Radio and watching us on YouTube. Again, questions and comments to bob@firedupmail.com. And please friend us on Facebook at Fired Up with Bob Iwrwin and send your questions in there and we will get them answered. I only skipped like 4 stories. We have had a drawing working for a new high-tech Kimber $2,600 pistol. We're going to do the drawing for it next week on this show live.
Where do I sign up?
Right.
Tickets are available at the store. There's only 150 tickets being sold, $20 each for a $2,700 Kimber race gun. Gorgeous pistol. Somebody's going to win it for $20. So if you haven't got down here to the gun store and got a ticket, get one because you got a good shot of winning. If you buy 2 tickets, it's only 1 in 75. You might win it. And we'll do the drawing live on the air so nobody knows that nobody will think we're cheating or whatever. And employees and guests of this show, well, you could win money because you won't be on when we're doing the drawing. We are done.